So the first thing we're going to do is get the main colored yarn, fold it over on itself to form a loop, then take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb, just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through that loop for your slip knot. Then you're going to make a chain of 15. I'm just going to make 4 of them with you. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and finish your chain of 15, and then after you finish your chain of 15, you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to go into the second chain from the hook. And then bring up a loop, make your single crochet, and then make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. So now you should have a total of 14 stitches, and we're going to maintain that number of stitches, 14, for the next 4 rows. So just take your crochet hook, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you can see how there's a little bit of an upslope here beneath your chain 1. That's going to count as your first stitch. Then you're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet for your second stitch. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across and then come back. So I just finished my 14th stitch on the row. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and move up to, turn my work to move up to the next row. And then you're going to go into the next stitch and just keep repeating this until you have a total of 3 more. So here was our first row, this one's our second row, and this is our second row. Actually, I'm going to count this as our first one because we're going to make a total of 4. So this is our second one we're working on, and then you're going to work a total of 4 before you come back, and each of those 4 rows should have 14 stitches in each of them. So I just finished my last row, and this is how my work looks, and you can see how you have straight edges on both sides. So now we're going to, after we finish that last row, you're just going to turn your work. So you're not going to have any chain 1. You turn your work, and then you go into the next stitch over for a single crochet. And so because you don't have a chain 1, you're not going to have that first stitch, and this becomes your first stitch for the row. So that counts as 1. Go into the next stitch for your next single crochet for 2, and you're going to finish making 1 single crochet in every stitch across, and then that's going to bring your stitch count for the row to be 13. So I just finished my last stitch for the row, and I have a total of 13 stitches ending up that row. Then I'm going to turn my work again. I'm going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet. So that will count as my first stitch because again I didn't have a chain 1. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, and then you'll end up with 12 stitches when finishing this row. Now we're going to maintain the stitch count of 12 for 3 rows. So to do that, you're going to chain 1, turn your work. So that chain 1 counts as your first stitch. You're going to go into the next stitch over for your second single crochet. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch across, which will give you a stitch count of 12. And then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and make a single crochet in every stitch across. And you're going to do that until you've completed 3 rows with a stitch count of 12. And then come back. So I just finished 3 rows of a stitch count of 12. Now I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to turn my work, go into the next stitch, and just make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. And when you finish this row, you should have a stitch count of 11. Then after you finish your 11th stitch, you just turn your work again, go into the next stitch over, and just make 1 single crochet in every stitch across, and then this will give you a stitch count of 10. And you're just going to keep repeating that pattern, turning your work, 1 single crochet in every stitch, until you get down to a stitch count of 2, and it should go in order. So now I'm on 10, so it would be 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then 2, and then come back. So this is how your work should look. You can see how it crocheted all the way down to a point. I have 2 stitches left. I'm just going to turn my work and then just slip stitch into the next stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you're going to need 2 made the exact same way. Then you can go ahead and just bury your loose yarn ends. So I just weave mine through the work. Until it's buried. Then I just take and cut that loose yarn end. So go ahead and bury any of your loose yarn ends. Now you're going to take both of your ears and you're going to take some yarn, same colored yarn on your tapestry needle, and you're going to make your right and your left ear. So I'm going to start right and left ear on video tutorial. So I'm going to count this as my right and then this is the left. So here, for the right ear, you're going to pinch about 1 inch of the 3rd and 4th row, and then just fold it down onto the 2nd row there, and then just take your tapestry needle and then you're just going to put about 1 stitch through that fold. Make sure you leave enough of a loose yarn end on the back, and then just go about 1 stitch over all the way through to the back to hold the fold in place. Then you're just going to tie a knot on the back, and then you could put a couple stitches if you want to. I'm just going to put 1 stitch in, and then you just cut and bury your loose yarn ends. Then you're going to take and just fold the top of the ear down, and then you can place a stitch into that top fold as well. And again, you're going to leave enough of a loose yarn end on the back. So this is what the ear will look like after doing that. And then you're going to make the other ear the exact same way, but it's going to be a mirror image, meaning you're not going to pinch the same side. You're going to do that exact same thing on the opposite side. And then again, you're just going to fold the top down just like you did on the opposite side, so that the point is pointing towards the direction, the left or the right direction. And then your ears are ready to be sewn onto the head, but we're going to sew those on, the ears on last. So my Crochet Pitbull video tutorials 1 and 2 are basically the same pattern. The only difference the main difference are the ears, because in the Pitbull video 1 and 2 the ears come out too large with the effervescent yarn, which is the yarn they discontinued. So you could just make, using your Red Heart yarn, follow the same pattern. I show a little bit different method in my Pitbull 1 and 2, but the ears are the only thing that you would want to use this pattern for. We're going to place our snout, but I'm going to show you a little bit of a different trick with the snout. So you could just use an easy method and just join your color on the top of the snout. So you would just join your yarn at the top of the snout, and then just, for mine on this dog, I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, and now you already know that when you chain 1 you can maintain the number of stitches, and if you want to create the point like you did with your crochet ear, you would leave the chain 1 out and just turn your work, which is what I did for this, and then I just made a chain for the little white strip. So you can make this method, or I'm going to show you a different method. I'm going to be showing you this method that I used. This is Leo, and you can see how I added a little bit more white yarn for his, and then I also added a little bit on the sides. So I'm going to show you this method with the different color. So I'm going to go ahead and join my white colored yarn, and I'm going to start mine all the way over on, this is the front of the snout, and I'm going over to the side of the nose. I'm going to join my yarn there, and I'm using my white colored yarn. So I'm going to tie a knot and join the white colored yarn. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch over, and I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 15 stitches. Then I'm just going to turn my work, go into the next stitch over, and make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. So right now I have 14 stitches. Then I'm just going to turn my work, go into the next stitch, and I'm going to keep doing this until I get down to 7 stitches. So when I finish this row, I'll have 13 stitches. I'm going to turn, make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across for a total of 12 stitches, and then the next row will be 11, next row 10, 9, 8, and then 7. So when you get down to 7 stitches, come back and I'll show you what to do next. So this is how my work looks so far. And now I'm down to 7 stitches. So I'm going to maintain the stitch count for the 7 stitches. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, go into the next stitch over for my second single crochet, and then 1 single crochet in every stitch across. And then you're going to finish a total of 10 rows that have a stitch count of 7 stitches for each row. So again, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, make your second single crochet into the next stitch over, and then just continue making 1 single crochet in every stitch until you've completed 10 rows. And remember, each row will have a stitch count of 7. So I finished 10 rows of the stitch count of 7. This is what it should look like. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew it down onto the dog. And I'm going to show you how to sew the snout down, but first I'm going to show you how to make the color changes on the left and right of the snout. So now I'm going to take and join my color on the side of the snout. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot after making a chain 1. Then I'm just going to make a single crochet into the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 stitches. Now we want a triangular point, so just like we did for the ear, you're just going to turn your work, go into the next stitch over, make your single crochet, 1 single crochet in every stitch across, and then your stitch count will be 6. Then you just turn your work, go into the next stitch over, 1 single crochet in every stitch, then your stitch count will be 5. And then you're just going to repeat this process until you get down to a point, and then come back. So now I'm down to 2 stitches. I'm going to turn my work, slip stitch into the next stitch over, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish off. Go ahead and pull enough through to sew it down when you're ready. Then you're just going to make the same thing on the opposite side. So I'm going to take and join, this is the triangle we just made, so I'm going to go across and kind of try to make it symmetrical or even with the other side. So I'm just going to join on that end. I'm just going to bring up a loop and then chain 1 and then tie a knot. And then I'm just going to make a single crochet into the next stitch. This is the long end I left for sewing, so I'm just going to leave that. Come back to that later when I'm ready to sew down the snout. So I'm making about 7 again. 1 single crochet and 7 stitches, and then I'm just going to turn and then make a single crochet in the next stitch and repeat the same process that I did on the opposite side. Now for the fun part, you're going to take the head and the snout and you're going to line up the bottom portion of the snout with the head, and you want to make sure that you have your mouth and your nose straight, and then just take your tapestry needle with the same colored yarn, and then I usually start in the center, and you only want the front part of the head. So this is the right side of the head, of course, where you're sewing the snout, and then you're just at that bottom edge, you're just going to sew the bottom portion of the snout in place, all along the bottom of the snout only. Now you should have the bottom portion secured. So I have the bottom portion secured. Now we can shape the snout, and we can also decide where we want to place our eyes. Then once you know where your eyes are going to be placed, you can go ahead and sew the eyes down. For my eyes, I took and sewed the white portion of the eye down first, all around the edge of the white portion of the eye. And then I just sew the blue portion with the same colored yarn. So then I just sew along the bottom. I don't go all the way around. I just sew the bottom to close the eye. So this is what my eyes look like after I sewed them on. You just want to make sure that they're even on both sides. And you can see that with different yarn choice, you can have your eyes placed differently depending on yarn choice. That's why I have you sew it on this. And then this is with the safety doll eyes. And then with the safety doll eyes, I went right through the white portion, so I lined it up so that my eyes would fall onto the white portion of the yarn. And I went all the way through the white portion and the head with the safety latch, and that holds securely. It doesn't come off. So now you're ready to sew down the top portion of the snout. So you're going to want to leave one side open for the craft stuffing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along the side, one side, and then also along the top of the snout right here, sewing it and placing it how I want it to look and be shaped. So I'm actually lining up the snout with this side of the eye, and I'm going to sew across the top, positioning it where I want. And I still have the opening here for the craft stuffing. So you can see how I'm sewing all across the top and lining up the top of the snout with the eyes and making sure that my nose is straight. And make sure that you're only sewing to the front panel. You don't want to go through the back panel as you're sewing the top of the snout in place. Then once I've sewed across the top, I'm going to go down the side here, the one side of the snout, and then I'll be ready to stuff the snout and give it its shape. So you can see how I sewed across the top and down the one side of the snout, and now I'm ready to put my craft stuffing into the side. So you can see how I'm just going to put the craft stuffing. I just use one of my old pillows, inexpensive pillows, and then you just kind of shape the snout how you want it. Make sure your nose is straight. Then you can go ahead and sew down the last side of the snout. Then you can take and finish sewing down the rest of the color portion. And this is what it looks like after I finished sewing everything together on the face. Now you're ready to sew the ears on. So now you just want to make sure you grab the right ear before you sew it on. So the point will be pointing away from the dog. So this would be the right ear. Then you're just going to need the same colored yarn on your tapestry needle. And then I usually will go up towards the center of the top of the head, come through with my tapestry needle, about a stitch over from the eye, the inner portion of the eye, and then you're going to line that up with the end of the ear. And make sure you leave enough of a loose yarn in on the inside for tying a knot. And then you can go about a stitch over, back down into the dog's head, and then just tie a knot on the inside. Then we have one part of the ear secure. So we're going to want to create a little bit of a curve here. And so here is the side panel. So I usually will line up the bottom portion of the ear with the side panel and the eye. And then I'm going to sew. So I'm going to hold that down, and then you go back a stitch or two with the center of the ear. So I'm going to come out of the side panel here with my tapestry needle. Where I want to place the ear. So I'm going to come right down the center where I want to place it. Then I just take the bottom portion of the ear and then bring the yarn through. So you can line it up however you want to. That's how I do it. And that way I'll be able to sew the little bit of a curve, about a stitch back or a row back. So I just go in and then come up on the ear. And you just want to sew along the base of the ear, and you can lay the ear down. It'll hold up when you're ready to bring it up. And then I just sew about a row back a little bit of a curve in the ear. And then I just sew all along this edge now to secure it. Then this is what your ear will look like after you've sewn it on. And whatever way that you sew your ear on, you just want to make sure you do the exact same thing for the other ear so it looks exactly the same. And this is what the ears look like on mine. You can see how adorable it's going to turn out. Then you're ready to go back to form the neck. And the rest of the dog is made the exact same way as my Crochet Pitbull part 1 and 2. So if you want to make the adorable bow or the collar, I show that in my Pitbull part 2 video tutorial, as well as the feet and the body and the tail. It's all made the exact same way. I'm going to go ahead and finish the neck with you on this video tutorial. So I'm going to join my yarn again at the bottom of the head. So you just bring up a loop with the same colored yarn, chain 1, and then tie a knot. And then you can use a yarn marker here if you want to help you keep track. Usually I can use the face to help guide me, but I'm going to leave one for video tutorial. Then you just make a single crochet into the next 5 stitches. Then you're going to make a single crochet 2 together, or a decrease stitch. So you go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through all 3 loops for a decrease stitch. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. 1 single crochet into 5 stitches, and then a decrease stitch. Then when you get back to the yarn marker, go ahead and move the yarn up, and then you're going to get ready for the next decrease round. The next decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then you're going to make your decrease stitch, or single crochet 2 stitches together. And then repeat that pattern all the way around, 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then your decrease stitch. For the next round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then make your decrease stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around, back to the yarn marker. And then the last decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then your decrease stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around, back to the yarn marker. Then you can see I have a little bit of an opening at the bottom, and this has approximately 27 stitches around. Go ahead and remove your yarn marker if you used it, and then you're just going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. Just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew the dog's head onto the body. And then you have your completed Pitbull dog head.